Welcome to another episode Out of the Blank podcast, take two with Jer.
How we doing?
Jer, look at that. I still had the same enthusiasm when I said your name.
Yeah, after the crash last time.
It's
Oh well,
okay. Most things crash. Like, I think every single plan I ever have usually ends up crashing and burning.
that's rough, man. That's pretty rough.
Doesn't that just, like, that's why I try and look at the optimistic side of life and just laugh a little bit, which is kind
Yeah,
of like, I think it's the best way to be. I mean, life, you don't know when it could be gone or when it could, still be there. And then it's like, hey, should I dive into this still or no?
short answer for if you should dive into it is always yes.
Jer, why don't you tell me a
Unless
little
it's a
bit about
volcano.
yourself, man?
So my name is Gerard Eady. I'm 1/3 of the Awfully Irish podcast. You had Thomas on before. You were telling me he's did some crazy stuff. I do outside the podcast. I do archery. So I am 6-time Irish national champion, 3-time UK and Ireland champion. Last year, I competed in the World Championship and placed first in my division. And yeah, I came
So
third in Europe 3 years ago.
you're the guy we turn to when there's a zombie apocalypse and we don't know how to
Always,
make bullets and shit. You got the
always.
bow. Are
Yeah.
you afraid of what the Neuralink is doing, where it could be at one point you're in a competition with a guy who's got a computer in his head to get the auto aim mod where you can like hit the target on point?
You know what? I'm not exactly concerned about Neuralink for that, but there are other things I'm worried about. Like you can get a prosthetic lenses for your eyes, make you see like 20 times better. You can see beyond 20/20 with them, and you don't have to announce if you have them if you do archery. So
Does that so it's like kind of like steroids a
yeah,
little
it's
bit.
it's kind of like steroids for archery. Like
What
supervision.
So okay, well, how did you get started into archery? First of all, that's so freaking. At least in the States, that's like a rare thing. I think I played with a bow when I was like 9, and I almost took my fingers off. I actually saw my buddy literally from the hip with like one of those toy bows fire and get it stuck right into a fence, like perfectly in the middle line of one of the fences. I was like, "That's never gonna happen again." And he's like, "That was a no scope." I'm like, "I don't think you know what
Yeah,
that means."
yeah. That guy should go for the Olympics. Fair play to him. Um, yeah, I got into it because my dad went. My dad used to do airsoft. Do you know what that is?
Yeah, I know what airsoft is.
And sorry, so he was
I
doing
got
one of the
offended by that.
experiments.
I'm like, I have 30 airsoft guns. Like, if you paint the tip black, you can rob a store. I'm just saying.
Yeah. So, geez, have you any experience of that?
I'm not gonna lie. I thought about it when I was a kid, and I went all through the painting process. But then I was like, like I don't know. I just felt like I could never hurt somebody.
Well, at least he didn't do it. But yeah, my dad used to do airsoft, and his friend Ken used to. Well, they were getting old. Like they were 40 something, oldest guys there normally. So they said, okay, maybe we'll try something new, and they try archery. And then after a while, Ken quits. Ken just kind of gives up. He doesn't want to do this stuff anymore. Um, so my dad is stuck in an archery club. He's just after getting a membership in, and he says, "Okay, maybe I could make this a father-son thing." And well, and he grabs me. So I started archery with my dad in our local archery club. Um, and then after a while, my whole family got involved. So my whole family does archery. And yeah, from there, we shot about 2 years in a small organization, moved our way into one of the main ones, IFAF. And then I think in our second year of doing archery, we started shooting abroad. My first competition abroad was the World Championships in Hungary in 2015. And I'll be honest with you, I came last.
Do you ever feel like you're the most manliest in like the room because you have archery skills? I feel like if I had that ability, I would just be like, I could easily take you out back, fire at you with a bow, and knock an apple right off your head without even looking.
Uh, Sometimes. Yeah, sometimes. I never really think about it, but now you're making me think about it, so kind of.
It's literally like if you have a resume, that should be the top thing you have on there. Like even on a dating
It
profile
is.
app, if you look at Tinder, everything's like, I like long walks on the beach, I like to read. And you know what? My mom says I'm a real good listener, but you're like, I can fucking kill a bear if we get attacked anywhere. Like you
Yeah,
would go at it with a gun, I would go at it with a. I mean, honestly, saying, what in nature do you think you could take if you had a bow and maybe a single arrow? What's any animal?
a single arrow and a bow. Well, I'll be straight with you. Bow hunting is illegal in Ireland. Uh,
Wait, what?
yeah, bow hunting is illegal in Ireland.
Why?
Um, it's to do with conservation. We were under English occupation for nearly 600 years, and in that time they killed everything. I mean everything. And we had to reintroduce things, and then we're trying to get populations back to what they would have been like hundreds of years ago. Because like it was nicer to go hunt in Ireland than to kill your local deer herd, kind of thing, you know. So that's what happened here. Even they cut down our trees. We're the most deforested nation in Europe, I think. I think second to like Iceland, and yeah, as a result, we have to like fix this place back up. So bow hunting isn't there because if you there's nothing really to kill. I know you can, and also they don't want you to kill anything really. So it's not what would you call it?
Well, I mean, it seems like if at that point it's
It's
kind of
not it's not
useless
cost
unless
of
you're in competitions now.
yeah, it's not cost effective to hunt anything in Ireland anyway.
Imagine having an amazing talent for something a lot of people don't have, and you're not able to use it in hunting purposes, only in competitions. That means you literally have to travel to a competition to be able to do the one thing like you really enjoy doing.
Yeah.
It's like fucking telling somebody they have amazing painting skills, but then keeping them away from all the paint. It's like, what are you doing?
But the thing is, you can't kill someone with a bucket of paint at 180 yards.
I can try hard enough. I can throw really far. Like you don't know how
Yeah.
far I can throw. I mean, I've seen a dude that covered his hand. Oh, I haven't seen it, but I heard about a dude in Florida that covered his hands in peanut butter to go beat up his neighbor who had a peanut allergy.
Oh,
That's a crafty kill, dude. That is
poison
like,
damage.
oh my God, that's like if you just like bake some cookies and give it to somebody and they're like, I have a peanut allergy. Like, there's no peanuts in there. And they eat it and they're like, there's peanuts in here. And you're like, yep.
That's so bad. I just covering your hands in peanut butter and just fucking going haywire at someone.
I think,
Imagine that in the UFC. They find out Khabib is allergic to peanuts.
oh, dude. I mean, is it smart to do that? I look at it and I stop at the part of covering your hands in peanut butter because I'm a very clean guy. So I'm like, that just seems like more of a mess. Like, I don't know if you've ever gotten peanut butter on your hands. That smell
No.
lasts years. I mean, I work at a gym where we have to make this peanut butter protein shake, and I don't know freaking how. I got it on my hoodie. I got it on my fingers, and when I'm sleeping, I sleep with like my hand on my face or something. I'm smelling it. I'm like, I fucking hate peanut butter. It's like Nutella. Everybody wants it, and everybody wants it in their food.
Yeah. Now that's one thing I don't understand with like protein shakes. Like, why do you want like double chocolate Oreo flavor? Like, you're only caught yourself.
Let me tell you something. I got one that's a s'mores flavor. It's okay if the protein powder is flavored like that. But then they're like, can I get a giant scoop of peanut butter? Can I get some Nutella in there? Can I get a chocolate bar in there too? It's like, you're just annihilating the whole point of what you just did. Like,
Yeah.
you're not, this is honestly way more, like, I know people that will come to the gym, they'll work out just to get the shake, but then they put like a triple chocolate dessert. I'm like, why don't you just get a milkshake? Why don't you just go to Dumzer's or the ice cream place, Baskin Robbins, and feast? Because that's all you're doing. Like, but I
Yeah. No,
worked out.
that's
I'm like, that's not how it works.
yeah. You have to eat well as well. So yeah, that's kind of stupid. I'm imagining that now. It's kind of like maybe like an ice cream bar. There's people asking for scoops of this and that and the other. It's kind of bad for a gym.
It's especially funny when some person's like, well, I didn't eat lunch, so I'm going to put an ice cream bar in this protein shake. And it's like, that's not how it works. But I commend your appreciation for not understanding nutrition at all.
Yeah, no, that's even worse. That's way worse.
What's your biggest fear with archery? Like where it's going to be at in the future? I'm looking at how like, I mean, do you like where it's going? I mean, from when you were a kid, you look at how hard it was to kind of do it. As in bows, they're not as technical as they are now. It seems like a lot of it's kind of done for you. I know there's still like the classic ones, the people that are like they want to build their own bow. They want to feel that, because if you've ever tried to, people listening, if you've ever tried to pull a bow string back to be able to fire, it's not supposed to be super easy. But now with everything coming out now, they're all super assisted, and it makes it
Yeah.
easier to do that.
There's one thing called a hybrid bow, and it combines like the effects of a recurve and a compound, and it's the most insane looking thing you'll ever see. It looks like the bow from Crisis. You ever played Crisis?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's that on steroids. And it's used for fishing. But
Right.
yeah, there's a lot of things I'm worried about with archery. One thing is that bow hunting isn't going to last, because people get this impression of, why wouldn't you use a gun? It's faster. Um, well, I can counter that pretty easily. If I go out there with my rifle, it's a lot easier to kill something. I could go out and I could kill a lot of things compared to a bow. Like with a bow, you pretty much got like a 20% chance of hitting, and it puts you on an even playing field with the animal. Like you up 200 yards away in your tower shooting a deer is not the same as you 20 yards away hidden up in a tree right above us. So, you know, I feel like people get the wrong impression about bow hunting. I've never even done it, but I'm really looking to do it at some stage.
I'm not calling you a murderer, but have you ever had murderous thoughts, like somebody pisses you off in a store and you're like, I could fucking put an arrow right in between your head?
No, no,
Really? I've had that
no.
over like a jar of peanut butter where I'm like in the middle of like a cereal aisle and I look over and this dude's like, he got the last box of Raisin Bran. I will beat you to death with that box. So
Fair enough.
I'm the psychopath. Okay, I see how
I
it
guess
is.
that's not in the Irish.
You would think the Irish would be pro fighting on that matter.
Pro fighting, not killing.
Okay, I see where you're saying now, but I bring up a good point for you to start using instead of saying that thing you said where you usually combat somebody that says like, why would you use a bow? Say, what happens if there's a zombie apocalypse? They're like, well, I have a gun. Okay, can you make your own fucking bullets? No. Okay, then
Well,
how long until you run out?
there's probably a small amount of people who can make their own bullets, and realistically, at that, it's going to be garbage.
And eventually you're going to run out of the resources to be able to do so, where actually a bow would be easier. You're going to be fucking Daryl Dixon from The Walking Dead, except you're going to be having more skill because you have to use a pullback bow instead of a crossbow.
Yeah, and then you have to learn to make your own bow, because a store-bought bow is probably not going to last as long over time. Like, they're built for competition. It's not really the abuse that you'd have in your zombie apocalypse.
Yeah,
you know?
You can also use it as like a melee weapon too. It's pretty sharp.
Well, the wooden bows I have, which is presumably what you'd use, would not be able for melee. Like they're super light. You know, you're probably going to damage the bow. Like one thing that gets me in watching the Avengers is when Hawkeye goes around beating people up with his bow, and he's using the limbs and the string. Like that thing's going to explode. Like the whole thing's supposed to bend. So how is he getting solid hits?
That's what you question out of the Avengers, not the fact that he had one fucking arrow in one of the scenes and then he's shooting like 50,000, like somebody randomly tossed him out a pack of arrows or something. That's what you question?
Yeah, I know. I love that about it. Like he go out with 12 arrows and then like kill 12 things. Like
I love how you look at that movie and you would see something completely different from somebody that's just normally watching it. Like, wow, this movie's awesome. You're like, how many? This is all unrealistic. His bow firing is stupid. His aim is off. He's not even looking now. And now, like, I could just see you in the theater complaining about it.
So some of the things he does, like you could probably do if you're like a really, really good archer. But there's worse. There's worse archery movies. Like Hunger Games. The recent Robin Hood is so good. Like they got everything right.
There was another Robin Hood?
The most recent one? With Jamie Foxx?
I haven't seen that one.
Okay. Well, no, that one got everything pretty accurate for the time period. And then the Hunger Games, like you get the string back to your face, yeah? Your thumb is tucked down, up in here, and then the string is probably like along here. But she's tucked underneath her nose. So 50 pounds of force on a very small string against your nose, slice. That's what would happen, but that's the way they made her pose.
That's how I almost lost my finger when I shot a real bow. I had my finger I guess I don't know where I had it that wasn't placed properly, but the bow
Yeah,
fired off and I almost took it completely off.
that's rough. Was it a compound bow or like a normal bow?
It was a normal bow.
Yeah, no, because the higher up in poundage, the more dangerous it is.
I just
Like
think you look at it like information, like everybody values different sources of information. So no information is technically invaluable. It just means something different to somebody else. For me, bow hunting is not a huge thing, so I don't ever really need to learn it. But then I'm looking at like that is an essential skill though. Like the people that, practice the craft 24/7 and also like are able to really do it. You got to look at like, holy crap, like if there's ever a scenario that you got placed in, yes, you would be able to fire off one of those things. Like you say that bow hunting is kind of seeming a little bit irrelevant in the eyes of other people, where you kind of combat it a little bit. Not even in a zombie apocalypse, but look at the factor of like, we should just go back to sword fighting and fucking bow fighting. I feel
you
like
know
that's
what?
a way manlier or manlier way to solve your issues. Somebody pisses you
Yeah,
off, you walk out in the street with a sword. Like how many people are gonna fucking square up to you when you're gonna have to battle over blade or bow?
yeah. There's a big difference between two lads pulling out Glocks and two lads pulling out like
Bingo.
Excalibur, like this huge long
You pulled
swords.
out the legendary sword nobody can pull out of the stone.
Yeah, and there's two of them. No, like I had this conversation with Thomas. You had him on before. That it would be so much more epic if instead of like guns, like everyone had a gun, had their guns replaced with swords. So say you had 30 guns right now, they're replaced with 30 kinds of swords, and then if you want to rob a bank, you have to fight off like the guard, you have to fight off like the manager. Yeah, it'd be a lot more epic than some guy going up there and
Well, let me place you in one of my
using
favorite
an AK.
movies. I'll place you in one of my favorite movies, Shaun of the Dead.
Great
If that
movie.
ever
Talked
happens,
about it yesterday.
you have a bow and you're able to use that so you're not throwing fucking records. I mean, how many people don't even own a weapon in their house? They're looking for like the nearest thing, a zombie comes up, they grab like a DVD, throw it at their head, and then next thing you know, they grab a butter knife. It's like out of all the knives you could have grabbed, you grabbed a knife that literally can't cut through anything but butter.
Outside of the United States and Mexico, most people don't have a weapon in their house.
I can
Like,
turn anything into a weapon, even a
do
candle.
you have stuff in your house like that? Like, do you own a firearm?
I don't own a firearm, but I own a couple of airsoft guns.
Okay, so somewhat of a weapon.
Well,
If
one
you crank
shoots
them up high enough,
CO2 and it
yeah,
shoots a metal BB and it gets stuck in a tree. So I'm going to say that if
yeah,
I stuck that close enough to your head, I
that'll do
might
it.
be able to kill you or at least make you mentally challenged with the force of the bullet.
Or it could ricochet back at you.
Oh, you'll shoot your eye out.
Yeah, yeah, I gotcha. Yeah. How did we get here?
Well, this is Out of the Blank podcast. So the roads kind of curve and then it's like when you're taking a trip to like, I don't know, far away and you're like, what happened? What direction did we go? And I'm too afraid to ask for directions. So I'm just going to keep
Yeah.
going with the flow.
No, I like it. It's kind of how our one goes, except ours is like very Irish. Actually, are you in any way like Irish? Like, do you have Irish ancestry?
I do. I think most people that are white in America probably have a little bit of Irish in them.
Yeah.
I
Fair
don't
enough.
know anything about my culture though. I'm everything that hates each other. I'm British, Irish, Jewish, all these things where it's like I'm even 3% Nigerian. I took that on ancestry.com. I was like, wow, I'm like everything that does not like each other all into one. This is amazing. It makes me feel like I could be the bridge between worlds. I know that
I
sounds
think
dumb.
Nigerians are the largest African minority inside of Ireland because we didn't have slavery. We had just people in the last couple of years come over from Africa and move here because why not?
Yeah, I feel like you can live anywhere you want. I don't know why people still think that you can't.
I
What's
know, man. It's so dumb.
You know what really gets me
Like
is
we don't
like,
live in the Victorian ages anymore.
hey, don't knock the Victorian ages. That's where I know what most of my knowledge is the Victorian ages.
Fair enough.
But I do want to bring up the fact of, how people like in America will be like, you're not a native. You're not one of the Native Americans. You're not this. I'm like, hang on a second. Understand history has two sides. Yes, we're all finding out that everybody that was a president, all this, like George Washington, his teeth weren't made of wood. They were
Oh,
made
I heard about this.
they were made from other slave teeth. But before you go off saying that every person that was a leader is corrupt, understand that the Native Americans ate each other and they would kill each other. And they weren't very educated when it came to what we think of now. And that was just everything back in the day. So everybody's got something going on wrong with
Yeah.
them. So I'm like, let's chill on the whole factor of pointing fingers and understand everybody was a little messed up back in the day.
But with that thing with George Washington, I know he bought those teeth. Which number one is weird. But that was a thing back then. Like he wasn't unique to just like I'm gonna buy your fucking teeth. It's like it was a thing that happened back then. You
And
didn't have like porcelain teeth as available. You didn't have like stuff we have now. So he just bought a tooth.
if you could do it now, I'm pretty
A lot
sure
of them.
people would do that now. If somebody was selling their teeth out, you're telling me you wouldn't want Steve Harvey's teeth? Those giant fucking things?
Yeah. With my root canal, I'll be losing it too. Anyone want to buy it? No.
Probably the Tooth Fairy. I don't know if they go over
Yeah.
there in Ireland.
Yeah. That'd be rough. Did Thomas tell you that Halloween's an Irish tradition?
Yeah, that was actually he didn't tell me that. I actually knew that before. It was supposed to be the guy tricked the devil by having him climb up a tree, and he did some symbol where he couldn't come down, and he said that if he would let him live or whatever, he would do this, and the next thing you know, it led into this whole other thing. Did I hit
Okay.
close? Was that close?
I mean, there's a story about a guy called Jack, but that wasn't like the original thing. It's like a pagan tradition. So Ihahawan is kind of like the closest that the living world and the dead world come together, and they can kind of bridge over. So you dress up to look like you're one of them, so they don't kill you.
Oh yeah. That's like Day of the Dead type. That's what Day of the Dead is.
Kind of, but we did it first.
I was there first.
No, we did it a long, long time ago. That's like super old pagan stuff.
I like how everyone like knows the story of like Jesus and all this, but I'm like, does anybody ever research farther than that in the ark and then all that? Like, do you know that the angels used to like murder your whole family if you didn't have the firstborn child's blood on the front of their door? Like,
Yeah,
do we not question that, but we question American history? Like, hang on a second, this has been happening for generations. I just want to know who the hell built the pyramids, because I that seems like it was help from somewhere else.
yeah, yeah. You guys question everything there. Like everything is something bad in America at the moment.
I'm pretty
Um,
sure if we looked at Irish history, there'd be some things we'd question too.
well, well, what would you want to question? Years of British occupation, 600 years of it, or the before that, just sticks and stones?
I would more like to question what was going on with you guys when it dived into the world of witches, because you guys had a huge problem with witches back in the day.
Did we? I think we
Yes.
had druids were the old uh kind of the old sorcerer boys back in the day. Uh, they were kind of the priests before priests. But sure, when we had druids, Rome was still around. So a while back. Uh, I know, like before the British came here, we had like some kingdoms. Like they were all independent kingdoms, and we had like it's kind of like the United States nearly. You know, they're all their own states, but there was one high king, so we had one like federal king or whatever. And yeah, then the British came in, and we only really learned about the stuff that happened after the British came here because they actually burnt a lot of our history. You know, like stuff that was written down. Like
Yeah.
the Celts didn't write things down anyway, but when they started to, after the Vikings came, whatever, or just before then, yeah, that all got burned away. So Irish history is kind of a mystery.
Doesn't that kind of suck? Like, I think one of the most interesting thing is finding out where you came from, like tracing your lineage. Like, what's really interesting about the Mormon tradition is that each one of them keeps a journal, and every single day they write something down. So you'll have a journal from like your great 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 grandparents. That'll be like the day of, like, here's September whatever, and then they'll have the whole thing lined out.
That sounds pretty cool. But yeah, one thing that I don't think people realize that cultures outside of America understand is having their cultures taken away from them or burnt away. Um, like you want like colonialism was bad, but the British first tested here when they sent settlers here. Uh, During the Reformation, they sent Protestant settlers over here to kind of just become landlords. It happened mainly in Northern Ireland, and that's why it's not part of Ireland anymore.
Is it worse to have all your history lost, or is it worse to have it so secretive that you end up finding out about it later? Because that's the problem with America, is that everything
It's
is kept from us.
it's finding out later, but not being able to express how you relate to other people with it. Like when you think of countries that experience colonialism, are you going to think about Ireland? No, no one ever thinks of that.
I think culture when I think of Ireland.
Yeah, but like obviously you think of, uh, I guess I don't know. Look, it's a rough patch. Uh, Other countries in Europe got colonized as well.
I mean, you're
Wasn't
informing me. I had no idea that. I thought everybody loved the British, but now I'm looking at it like, oh, maybe they weren't as nice as I thought they were.
63 countries will tell you otherwise.
Wow,
It
63
colonized
countries.
63 countries.
Maybe so. It's just Canada that's the nice one.
Oh, they're lovely. Canadians are lovely. Like I don't have
Even
anything
though
against
every
British people.
Canadian I've talked to, they're all like, "This place sucks." I'm like, "What are you talking about? You have like the most like happiest, nicest, like every
But it's
Canadian
cold.
stereotype is." But they're like, "No, our government is terrible." I'm like, "Really?" Like, so it's not just. That's what's scary is that we all worship the king, and we're still kind of doing that with like over here in the States with democracy. We just worship a president, but there's a bunch of other people that are supposed to question them. But I'm like, you got the same people in office that agree with the guy instead of nobody that wants to refute him. So I'm like, everywhere in the world, it's really, really strange. And I'm trying to figure out how can we go to a point where nobody governs everybody and we just have like this equal system of helping and supporting. But I'm like,
That sounds like anarchism.
not anarchy where you're fighting the government, more like an aspect of like, hey, my neighbor needs some help. I'm going to help them out. Or, hey, let's build a community instead of a commune. Like it all kind of stems back to wanting to be in a group. We all split up and this is where I get into freaking Illuminati stuff. Secret societies, that's going to happen. It's already happening. I mean, the fact of you look at like Freemasons, you look at all these things, everybody wants to be in a tribe and they want to create this group. It's cool to join a fraternity because you got a group of brothers. It's the same thing with everywhere. We just want to be in this pack mentality. I'm like, you want followers. That's why we have Instagram. You're building up a following, all right? You got people that are listening to you and wanting to follow you. Would you prefer those online ones that could easily just unfollow you in a second? Or would you prefer the ones that are real and that would kill for you? Okay, how do you get those? Well, homeless people. Feed them a sandwich. They'll fucking follow you like a stray cat. I'm telling you.
That's what Bill Gates and the boys are at. Yeah, no, secret societies kind of bad. Ireland was kind of built by secret societies because obviously when you're under occupation, you have to do it in secret. Like get out of start a rebellion in secret.
I mean, especially in Ireland too. That seems like where there would be a lot of like secret, like either cults or like I guess groups, just because of the culture. They're more of like loyalty, coat of arms style, family type things. Like
Yeah,
everything kind of that falls in Ireland is ancient tradition. It's actually one of the places I would really love to visit because it seems like something like I'm all about, which like coat of arms. Like I found my family coat of arms and I was like, this is badass. Why don't we have this on like a flag out in front of our house? And like, it's old. Who cares? I'm like, what do you mean? And I feel like there's that culture shift where it's like we started neglecting some of the stuff that kind of shows us our roots. And once you start forgetting your roots, you end up losing those people
I
that
also think
remember it.
we're very spoiled now. Like people nowadays live better than kings did back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, people
That's
always
that's
talk
that's,
about,
that's a fact. You
yeah,
have food on demand. You can actually hire servants and like like an Uber or whatever. That's a servant. Um, Kings didn't have internet. You do. Yeah, you could see the entire world. The king never seen outside of his kingdom.
well, that's the shitty thing about where the world's coming to with technology. It's why I'm so against technology. Is the fact is making lives too comfortable to the point like it's so freaking easy to get food that people just they become lazy when you can't, like, that's why I always say, like, hunters, if you're going to hunt and kill your own food, you know where that food comes from and you know what that's like. So when you go to a store to buy it, you understand, oh, I need to buy a little bit. I don't need to stock up. I don't need to completely waste it. You know, you learn how
Yeah,
to do that.
that's why I really appreciate hunters. Like realistically, a hunter could kill 2 animals in a year, 2 deers, done. Versus me going to the shop getting my packet of ham, or my steak, my packet of chicken, packet of turkey. And I'm doing that so often. Like, how many things have I killed this year from going to the supermarket? I'd be considered a genocidal maniac. Versus if you went out and you killed 2 deer and you just froze them, you know, big difference. Yeah, you should probably, if you're able to, you should probably try do it at least once, or even try fishing. You know, makes you have a lot more respect for where food comes from, and you should grow your own food too.
I think what needs to be done is what happened to me when I was in like elementary school. They took us on a field trip to a chicken factory and you got to see all of that happen. I mean, I didn't eat chicken for like 2 weeks, but I still have value of it when I eat it now. Like, I'm like, all right, I don't need to cook up 12 of these things and have half of it go to
Yeah,
waste. I'll cook up one and see where else I stand afterwards and then do it like that. I think that's where the issue is. We have so much
but
food in this country, which is so weird that there is
this is one thing I want to talk about with you because you're an American. Sorry, go on first.
you fucking interrupt me. You want me to go on now?
You.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm messing with you. Smile. Show me those root canal teeth.
Uh,
Look,
yeah,
but with the homeless population, with the starving, all these types of things, I have ideas of like, all right, so people started working from home with COVID. I don't know how bad COVID hit over in Ireland, but over here really put a lot of people out of work, and it's going to take probably years and years and years to get our economy even close to back to where it was before, even though it wasn't that good. But there's a lot of buildings that are abandoned, and I'm like, all these buildings and people working from home, can we knock those down and start building a community again, such as parks? Start building things that are more appealing instead of having same buildings that look exactly the same side by side that are empty. And I'm like, we have a fucking homeless population, but as soon as food expires, we throw it out. So instead of giving it to a home or a homeless person, here, this expires today. It's still good. Eat it. You throw it in the dumpster and watch that person crawl in there and get the food. So it's like, what the
yeah,
fuck? And then I'm like, we have all these abandoned homes, all these homes that are built and nobody's buying them, but they keep building and building and building and don't stop. And I'm like, give it to a homeless person. Tell him he's got 6 months free rent. Turn it into an open house type thing where you get to have all these people in there working, help them get a sustainable life. I mean, you expect a homeless person to go get a job. It's like, how do you expect that to happen if they can't get a shower? Nobody's going to hire them. So give them a house for 6 months. If they don't make any progress, they don't get a job, they don't do anything but trash the house, then kick them out. Because you gave them an opportunity. And I think that's what everyone always talks about, the land of opportunity. I'm like, it's like that anywhere. You need a second to realize how fucking hard it is nowadays to do anything because we've just been left without so much information for so freaking long.
yeah. I guess you feel very strongly on that.
I have a weird thing when it comes to people where I love them and I also hate them on the aspect of I think we've been going around, at least in the States over here, as not being our true selves and really denying any interaction of wanting to talk to people. But I'll give you a story, for instance. So September 15th, what's today? Actually, no, yeah, no, it was the 16th. I
It's the 18th.
had I no, I know today's the 18th. I'm saying when this happened was the 16th.
All right.
I had saw a man at my work at the gym die, and they brought him back to life. It was fucking insane. I was signing somebody up for a gym membership, and this old guy was on the Stairmaster, and all I do, I'm talking to this guy, and all this guy goes, holy shit, and then you just see this old man fall backwards and hit his head right on the ground, and we have the hard,
Fuck.
like the hard flooring, yeah. So I'm like, what the and I run over, and luckily there was a nurse and a physician that were in there working out on their day off, and they applied CPR. They brought the man back to life, but as they're doing that, they're like, call 911. So I get on the phone, I call 911. They're asking directions. I'm telling them what's going on, where we're at. And they're like, which side? I was like, we're next to the food line, the grocery store. They're like, which side? I'm like, they're like, east or west. I'm like, I don't fucking know what east or west is. I'm like, we're on the right side. They're like, the right side, is that like when you're coming into food line? I'm like, no, if you're looking, I'm like, hold on a second. So if I say the right, then it's your, and I'm like saying this all on the phone. And she's like, what side? I was like, next to the jeweler. They grabbed the defib unit. It didn't work. But they brought him back using normal CPR.
Yeah.
And, it was this thing. That was the one day I didn't say hi to the guy when he came in because I went to the bathroom and I missed him on his way in. So it's a type of thing, like, you never know the value of something, and we treat everyone does, even in any country, we treat other people like shit because it just doesn't mean anything to us. You never know when that could be fucking gone like that. And
Yeah.
it's a real fucking crazy experience.
Yeah, man, that sounds fucking terrifying. So fair play for keeping your head cool. Don't know how I'd react.
I
Um,
acted like a bitch. I called 911. They were like,
that's
but they had two people giving CPR that were way more certified. So I try and keep that in my head.
that's one thing that I thought that was conversation was going to go in a different direction. Some people are just terrified to call 911 because the cost of healthcare in the United States is insane.
Oh, it's not
Um,
like that when it comes to 911 like that. If you're doing it in like a personal situation, but like in a work situation, I mean, yeah, he's probably going to get a bill for the most expensive things, the ambulance ride. That's what really sucks. But like healthcare, we have our issues. Canada probably has the best healthcare, but it is an aspect of, I think this society is just built on money for way too long. And that's like that anywhere. If I gave you the option of like, I'm going to give you $10 billion, but one person on this earth is going to die and you don't know this person, there's just a random person, you take the 10 billion. Most people would take the 10 billion. It just makes sense.
yeah, but if you said the same thing and you said someone in your close circle was going to die, I think a lot of people would be very like, I'm okay, I'm okay.
That's the thing though. Why
It
does it
changes
have
to
to,
like a parent
why,
for 10
why,
billion.
why does it,
It changes.
why does it have to, yeah, but that's the issue. Why does it have to be someone that has to be close to you for you not to be able to kill them? Shouldn't we treat all people like they were family? Because technically we all come from somewhere. Before everybody started overpopulating the whole damn place, it was the fact of we all cared about our group. And it was in that moment when I saw this guy fall and then these two people rush up to give him CPR, where it was like, holy shit. Everyone was ignoring each other, but you came together to help because you understood the gravity of a situation. We should all understand that with a human life, but it's so hard because some people are like assholes, and then some people, everyone's got their own little divide here. I'm like, there's a way to bring us all back into one, like fucking Pangea. Before all of us split, there was that one. I could easily travel to your house. It would probably take me a long ass time on horseback or whatever the hell if I was riding a rhino, but it would still, we're that connected, but we've broke up and gone so far apart that we've lost connection.
Yeah, um, it's definitely a weird world we live in because every generation is just picking up the mistakes that the other one left behind. Like we're dealing with like the consequences of what colonialism did to people. Now, colonialism had its benefits, but it also had a lot of negatives. Like we live in this modern world because the whole world could trade and share technology and blah blah blah. But then the downside is some people just took the technology and killed people and ruined these places, burned down villages, fucking eradicated societies. So not good. Like some of what happened to the Native Americans is unreal. Like I think Ireland got aid from a Native American tribe during the famine, and then like recently, I think we paid them back because they were going through something similar. So the famine was like the Great Irish Migration when most people left. Ireland of 8 million people, and right now in 2020 it's at 5 million. So in nearly 200 years, nearly 200 years, the population hasn't even recovered from the starvation and the emigration that happened here. That's why there's more Irish people outside of Ireland than in Ireland. But yeah,
I mean, I
bad
think
stuff.
everybody has their own issues. Like where you said, you kind of question America, just what's going on over here. I mean, I'm not going to talk shit on the Irish. I'm not going to, just because of the factor of, I think your accent's fucking amazing.
Thank you.
Honestly, hearing you talk, I'm getting horny just listening to it. But the whole aspect of, I think what's really strange is that how people can harbor such all these arguments and hatred. And I can do it myself if I'm driving, I get pissed off, if I get angry or something, but then try and keep in the perspective of your heart could stop at any moment. And not even that, the fact of that we're all on this giant thing and we're just far enough from the sun that's able to sustain life, and it's not
Yeah.
able to boil the water. And then also the fact of all these meteors that could hit us at any moment, that somebody could just keep secret and be like, hey, by the way, there has been a meteor we saw that was heading here about a year ago. We saw it and it's about to hit us tomorrow. So
All it takes is one guy seeing it and not reporting it.
yeah, and it's literally like, and what's going to stop that one? Because we've had that happen before where someone's like, a meteor's coming, how do we handle this? But it just misses us. We're always just getting missed. And the fact that we're still alive, it's like, imagine it's going to get to the point where one person sees it in a telescope and goes, the world needs change, and lets it fucking happen. It's
Yeah.
getting to a point in not only our country, but everywhere, where there's like this nonstop hatred with social media. And I'm like, at one point, people are just going to stop giving a shit. And it's like when you're looking at a psycho killer that kills a bunch of people, that dude has no remorse. That's going to be the emotion level for everyone, because you're just not going to understand the value of a human life anymore.
Yeah, that's just how fragile we are. Like you're just saying there, like we're just we're at a certain distance where we don't like cook alive and we don't freeze to death. But like even things like we burn things, we make fire, and that's catching up on us. So like climate change, and then that's affecting everything. Like some of the stuff that's happening to things in the North Pole and even in the South Pole, it's unreal. Like seen that David Attenborough documentary. It's like walruses all on this like rocky island, and they're supposed to be on ice, so they're ripping themselves apart in sharp stones, and then they have terrible vision outside of water, so they're climbing up to high places to get away from the other ones, and they just fall off and die.
There's good nature documentaries and there's bad ones. Good ones are like you get someone with an accent like yours that does it, where it's like, oh, I love this because I can sit here and I can enjoy listening to it. But then you get the guy that's like, and there was a pile of wubble. And you're like, all right, I can't take this seriously when you have that. Like, I don't understand what's going on. But I'm like, is that how they lure you in? But I think there's just a lot of issues that people are neglecting, which is kind of like even when it falls into archery. Learning a skill like that, it takes time, it takes dedication, and it's not something that's going to be easily done. It's where I give musicians credit too.
Yeah,
My whole family is musicians. I can play a note if you tell me what to hit, you tell me the chord, I can be able to get through a song. I've done it before. But learning it on my own, it was this thing where I would be playing guitar, my fingers wouldn't work right, and you get pissed off and start punching your hand like, God, I can't believe this. That's what it's like that with anything. A lot of people don't have the patience to sit there and the determination and the consistency to keep going at it. And I think that's one of
yeah.
our biggest issues.
I have a friend, Andrew Donald. He's a blind archer. He suffers from rod monochromatism, means he only sees in black and white, and I think his peripheral vision is better than his like forward-facing vision. So like what he's seeing like in the corner of his eye is better than what he's seeing in front of him.
It's like Ridiculous Six, the dude with the crazy.
Yeah, he's crazy, but yeah, he's a musician as well. He says archery is a lot like music because it's kind of like a bow is kind of like a one-string instrument. You just have to tune it right and you have to play it right. Now that's a guy you should get in your show. That guy is full of talent. Uh,
Well, the show isn't just about having people, like people always say, like you talk to interesting people. I talk to people. Like everyone has the ability to become interesting. Everybody's interested in something. You're interested
mhm.
in archery. That's an amazing thing. It's not really common, but it's like you look at it like anything. Like some dude that can do pastel art, for instance. A guy that's amazing at doing pastel art. That's a skill that's amazing in the minds of a lot of people. What about the
Yeah,
dude that can be able to fucking say his ABCs backwards. It's impressive to somebody out there. You just got to kind of hone it in. You know what I mean? It's this weird thing where it's like everyone's got something about them. They're able to have a conversation. It's about taking the time to have one, even if you're in a completely different country. That's the only good part about social media or even technology in general, is the fact of being able to connect like this. Not
Yeah.
over Xbox where some dude's calling your mom a whore and you're like, this son of a bitch, I'm going to kill him. And it's like, hold on a second. Let's just understand, or just don't even talk. Like, the weirdest thing is when I broke my microphone when I was so into Xbox like 4 years ago and I couldn't talk shit back. Just the humbleness and like people just blasting their mixtape online and just doing this where you have to mute people. But like having like that urge now, like if I go on now with a microphone, someone's like, oh, you suck, man. I'm like, yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. Definitely not doing my best here. Like, it's just like so easy not to feed into it when you just sit there and listen to it without being able to say anything.
Yeah. Back in the day, Xbox Live lobbies were
Trash.
dangerous. They were dangerous, man.
I was going to stab
back in the
somebody in my
day,
family.
playing Black Ops 1. Oh my god. Man, those lobbies would just rip each other apart. There'd be lads in there and they'd only go there to roast people, and they do it pretty well.
So I have to ask you something. You kind of seem passionate about the whole history and culture type thing, especially when it comes to your country, as well as studying others. You ever thought about turning that into a career?
Well, I'm doing media studies, which involves filmmaking, so I guess that's something I can do. Um, yeah, people. It's such a weird thing to talk about. People don't like nationalism, but that's what got every country its independence. That's what got Ireland free. That leads into patriotism, but people don't like to acknowledge that it's a stage. Like, you need to be nationalism leads to patriotism. Like if you love your country,
You
like
can't have one without the other.
yes, but that's something I'd love to play into different films. Like, nationalism is a love of one's country at the expense of another. Patriotism is just a love of one's country. So at the expense of the British Empire, you guys got your independence, we got our independence, and then 61 other countries got their independence. But something we don't like to talk about. So that's
There's,
something I'd love to talk about in my stuff.
I'll say there's also a way to promote and love your country as well as not talking shit on another one.
Yeah, that's patriotism.
Yeah, it seems like the weirdest thing about everybody is that all right. So this has actually happened in the beginning of this podcast. What I a little bit felt was when you started talking about America, I got defensive because you're not from here, and I feel like somebody's shitting on America. It's like that with you see so many American podcasters. Anybody, if you can talk shit on your own country, but then someone branches up from another place and talks about your country, you immediately get defensive.
Yeah,
It's like you have an instinctual love for your place.
yeah,
Work on a way to turn it around and make it better.
yeah, but realistically, it's all the one place with imaginary borders. Like, it just, I love America. A lot of people don't, but I love it. I've been to Florida and I've been to South Dakota.
That's the
And
worst places to go. Why the
people were so nice. The food was so good, and even it's just things we got to do. It was amazing. Like, when we were in South Dakota, people there were just probably the nicest people I ever met.
Yeah.
There's people we met the first time there's people, and we met them for the first time, and they were already inviting us out for dinner. That doesn't happen in Ireland. Actually, one thing that I think is kind of funny about the States, people get married very fast. How long would you say you should be with someone before you consider it?
Before you get married?
Yes.
Never get married.
Come on, give me.
I'll
give me
be
an
in a
answer.
I'm never gonna get married. I'm telling you. I don't want to split half my shit. I'm sorry.
Fair.
Look. I understand. It's just how what's happened in my childhood and knowing a lot of things. I have some basic life rules I'll never go by, but it's a factor of can't you just be in a relationship without having to put this in paper, in writing? It has to be in writing. That makes it true. It's like when you love somebody, shouldn't it just be like you feel it, not it? Oh, the state has to say we're married.
I completely agree. I don't even think the state should be involved in marriage, but it's just the world we live in. Like, I've been with my lovely girlfriend for nearly 3 years, and By people I've talked to in the state standards, I should have been married 2 years ago.
What? No.
Yeah,
At this point, what you're probably thinking about doing is getting a dog, because once you start thinking about getting a dog, around that time is
we're getting a
when
dog and a cat.
it's when you get a dog, it's like this is the step to see if we can handle a kid. And then when it leads into, oh, I think we're ready for a kid, it's going to be like, okay, maybe we can get married. That's the mindset I have. Cause like, it's funny.
Yeah,
Before my brother had a kid, I was like, he was like, we're getting a dog. I'm like, so you're testing the relationship to see if you can handle a kid. Right. And he goes, what? I'm like, that's how it starts with every relationship in the States. It usually ends up, oh, we're going to get a puppy. We're going to see if we can do this. And then you realize a kid's fucking different. And you have a puppy and a kid all at once. You're like, I don't know what to do. I can't handle this. I'm like, well, you kind of screwed yourself over.
yeah, yeah. I actually never thought of it like that. But yeah, getting a dog is basically like testing.
I mean, they can wear diapers depending on the age of the dog.
Sure, sure. When they're young, when they're super old, you don't know. But yeah,
I think life is about whatever you want it to be about. But I feel like one's filled with hatred is a lot worse and kind of miserable than one filled with just understanding and openness. You know what I mean?
yeah,
If somebody comes on to my podcast and comes at me with some crazy whatever thing, I just listen to them. I feel like that's really the whole thing is if more people were open-minded, we wouldn't be so a closed-minded society, I guess you would say.
I've talked to on my podcast 80 something guests, and
It's
I've
a lot.
never had an unpleasant person. You're saying that's a lot. You've had 600 and something
It
or
doesn't
500 and
matter.
something.
Five people's a lot, dude.
Well,
You don't understand the fact of from someone like I talk to people, sure, but it's really a lot of people don't have the ability to even have one conversation. That happens. So when you say you have 80 people, you could say you have five. That's a lot of people. The fact that you're able to make five connections, that's all anybody needs in the world. Just make a connection.
yeah, and be honest with me now, because I'm going to be honest with you. I've had 80 something people, but I've only ever had two unpleasant people. Everyone else has been a joy. How many unpleasant eggs have you had?
I can
Like
give you
what I said something you were like really like, I need to end this podcast now.
I can give you two answers. One, before even doing a podcast, I've had when you send a random DM like I do, without knowing me or without doing this, people wonder why you sent that through a post and they look at you like, what do you want from me? Why are you inviting me on your show? Because 95% of the time out of if I send 80 invites out one day, 3 of them will respond back to positive way. The rest will ignore it or the rest will, ask me what I want and all these other types of things and want this form of structure. Doesn't happen with me. So then it ends up failing.
Yeah,
Two, out of all the 500 whatever episodes I have, maybe 10 easily. And actually the time I recorded Thomas's, there was a dude that was on the day before where it just didn't go well at all. And I did the whole hour, but it was like listening to it, you could tell the person didn't give a shit about being there. It's just about everybody wants this personal fucking interview and this whole thing. I'm like, it's a conversation and
exactly,
it's not
exactly.
that. And then you
That's
have some person come on, why ask you about using your real name? You have somebody comes on that goes, I'm a God king. I'm a hustle God. And you're like, hang on a second.
I'm not calling you hustle god.
Yeah, it's like I don't mind calling you that, but I want to talk to you. I want to, and I had a person, a past guest on, Lorraine Garrett, I think her name was. She's amazing, amazing, talented. But she was calling herself Hustle God and kept using the word hustle, where if you're listening to it, yeah, and then you're nodding your head like you do. But I sat there, and you can listen to this episode. I think it's 254 or something.
Yeah,
I go, the way you're saying hustle, what do you mean? She goes, I'm all about getting it done, getting it done. That's what I do. I get it done. And I said, okay, but listen, you're talking and people are going to hear this and think something really, really bad about you. So talk to me. When you're saying hustle, is it because that you feel like you have to put in as much work as possible for the time that you don't have, the time that you didn't do all this work, the time you didn't put towards your career? She goes, yeah, I'm trying to make up for lost time. I'm like, there you go. You start talking like that and explaining it to the people, then they could understand why you think this way. And then 30 minutes later, it turned into this whole humbling thing where people are like, that was a great episode. I'm like, because you go with your first thought and you don't sit there and listen to it. I've had
Yeah.
people that go, I'm a king master person. That's when I go, fuck, I'm not ready for this. But
Yeah.
you wanted an honest answer. I've had episodes that don't go well, mostly because people say something that they don't want out there. Like, I didn't want to use my real name. It's like, I'm not going to talk to Unicorn Fart 30. It's not fucking happening. I'm sorry. I want to be able to know that there's another person, there's that interaction. And that's when you create a wholesome conversation and
Yeah.
authenticity.
Yeah. I've never had something quite as weird as that. I had one guy on one of our early episodes, and see, the worst thing is an own person now. And he just started like talking the weirdest stuff I'd ever heard. Because I would say like 14 episodes in or something, and this guy was like making fucking sex noises into his mic. This guy was using, and then like every now and then we'd have a conversation. And he'd say like, "Oh, shout out to," and then insert porn star name.
It happens.
You know, and at the end I was just like, "What the fuck was that?" And the
I've
episode is no longer available
I've ended them
anywhere.
after 15 minutes where the dude just kept promoting the whole time, like, showing off merch, showing off all this. So I'm like, yeah, I'm good, man. I don't feel like posting this. It happens, dude. You have them. And it's then I had that dude reach out to me like 200 episodes later, almost a full year, and go, hey, man, I really want to come back onto the show. And I'm like, I never even posted your episode in the first place. It's just a fact of, you got to be there. You got to give a shit. And
Yeah,
you just got to have whatever way your show is. And don't let it discredit you either. It happens with so many people. People be like, oh, I guess people don't care about it. It's like, stop wanting everyone to love you and just be happy that
love
somebody
yourself.
is listening to you.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Um, yeah, even like we've had what you were saying now, people expect like a full interview. Like people expect that you're going to interview them about everything about their life. That's not realistic. We've had people who are pretty fucking up there. We've had like local celebrities and then like just other celebrities from the States. And not once did they expect an interview. They just had a conversation. But when we got to like the medium ones, like, like a just below a D-list kind of person, and they expected like, I don't know what they expected from us. But they really were looking for like a full interview on like, and I wanted to promote like everything that was going on at the time. Now, at the end of my show, I ask everyone to promote what they're doing at that start as well, just so people can check them out. Because like you want to give someone something for getting on your show. Like if you were getting on my show, I'd say, do you guys or do you have anything you want to plug for your podcast? Where can people find you? Like you said, like your Instagram name, your Twitter name, blah blah blah.
And I would give you
But
the answer of what I give everyone on any show I've ever been on. It's out of the blank. Fucking Google it. Because if you can't Google that to be able to
yeah,
find something, then you don't give a shit. So it's like, that's where it ends.
yeah. Actually, I found you very easy. I knew I was going to be on. I was like, okay, out of the blank. Oh, just that easy, out of the blank, and then podcast filled in. Like, okay, handy enough. Click. Took a look. I actually took a look at some of your guests, and you've had some pretty cool people. I messaged one of them. I'll be honest. I messaged one of them, the cactus guy.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I
I know
thought
who
that
you're
was
talking
such
about.
a unique thing. I was like, I need to talk to this guy.
That episode, I used a lot of what I learned from a space ecology. The people that are, there's a woman, her name is Morgan Irons. She studies space ecology, growing plants in outer space.
That's cool.
Fucking nuts. But I used the idea of with the cactus guy. We and him were talking, and I was like, a cactus is a perfect representation of what people are. They're this thing that is all, really sharp on the outside, but soft on the inside, and they grow in some of the hardest areas. You use things from, and you mentioned getting a guest or someone you really, really wanted, and they wanted this certain type of thing.
Yeah.
Two of my favorite bands I reached out to, I never had on because the guy wanted a list of questions and they asked how many people listen to my podcast. Those two things are big no's to where I just go, I'm good. And I denied. And the guy's like, what? You don't want us on anymore? I'm like, not if you only care about analytics, man. I mean, good luck. I'm sorry. I told you,
Yeah, that's rough.
not a big guy. I'm not out there. Honestly, I have a few listeners, but I'm just like, hey, man, I'm here because I would love to talk to these guys that I've listened to
Yeah.
since I was a little kid. And, you know, you never get past that point.
Never
You
meet your
just,
heroes kind of things.
and I noticed, like, I've stopped reaching out to famous people. I've had some of my favorite comedians on, but I've stopped reaching out to famous people only on the aspect of they're just people. They're normal, everyday people where something went right in their life and they got a certain little bit of fame.
Yeah, at the end of this, I'll tell you about a few people we've had on who are very, very pleasant to talk to, and they have some amazing stories. They're not out there looking to be famous, not out there looking to be like put on a golden pedestal. They just want to be nice people and have good conversations.
I'm famous to my mom.
I'm famous to my dog.
At least you got a dog. Next is a kid. Just remember that.
Yeah. What was I going to say? Yeah, if only that's one thing with podcasts. I wish I could like reverse back for like 10 seconds and see like, okay, what was I going to say a second ago?
That is time travel, my friend. It only happens
Yeah.
after the episode is done. Sadly, you
Yeah.
can't do that in the middle of it. Like
See,
McReary, Time Reary, that bullshit
yeah,
thing from Wizards of Waverly Place.
yeah. Oh, yeah, that was great. Yeah, if you're a listener, you can do it. I can't. You're lucky. But yeah, we've had some great guests. Uh, how do you find like getting guests on? Like, do you just scroll through Instagram and
I
like
reach out to
find unique
anybody
people?
and everybody. If I one day I'll wake up and be like, you know what? Who's the person that makes clogs? I gotta get that guy on the. I just gotta talk to him. He's probably got some weird thoughts about shoes.
Yeah,
Maybe he likes feet. And then I just go down this fucking rabbit hole where in my head I'm like, next thing I know, I'm talking to like a mime, and he's like, I'm a mime. I don't talk. I'm like, but you're messaging me right now. This is a form of talking. And then he stopped messaging me. I was like, oh, I got you, you son of a bitch. I got you.
yeah. Thomas was telling me about you. Like I say, you put in like a lot of work. Like you've like a lot of episodes, a lot of guests. Like me and Thomas mainly do it. Dara's very busy at the moment,
Well,
so
you know what I do because I like to help and I like community. You
go on.
find somebody I've had on, I'll reach out to them and I'll get you guys connected and you get them on your show. Because you said the cactus guy, I'll message them and ask them about it. You know, I mean, I think that's what needs a lot of time too. Like with some guests that I have, a lot of them are friends from past guests because they need to know what the experience was like. Because it's really,
Yeah,
really hard walking into something like you probably would have never agreed if Thomas didn't have fun on the podcast.
yeah. How did you meet Thomas anyway? Like Twitter?
My
Thomas goes
buddy,
crazy on Twitter.
my buddy Ian McGlynn from Why Whiskey.
Ah, yeah. I love that guy. Oh, we had great crack with that guy.
See,
It
we're
must
all
have been weird
more
for him.
connected than you think.
Yeah, must have been weird for him because he was talking to like 18 and 19-year-olds, and you can't drink in the States at that age anymore. Shout out to Ronald Reagan.
Reagan's a good man.
Man, he changed the drinking age.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down these walls. Tear them down. I still remember that Family Guy episode where he's yelling at Burger King and he's like, tear down those walls.
Yeah, no, he was a great guy. Just drinking age thing. Like it's one of those things when it goes in, it's never going to go back. Like no one in the United States is trying to bring the drinking age down.
Yeah,
Or if
but
they
we
are,
want to
I've
make
never heard of
voting
them.
16, which is really, really strange.
Yeah, like, and one thing with it is it causes an alcohol problem. See, well, you can drink when you're 5 in Ireland. Yeah, it's like a parental at your parents' kind of choice from 5 to 16 within your own
I get
home.
what you're saying. I see, because that's the same thing a lot with like Catholic schoolgirls where they repent sex so much that when they get, to the age where they can, or they freak out and end up turning into like whores or something. It's the same thing. Like you fight the opposite side. Everybody, if you made every single drug illegal or legal, would people just not want to take it? It's like there are some people that wouldn't want to take it because it's legal. Then there's some people that like the fucking. It's like I said, there can't be rules that govern everybody because everybody's so completely unique. It's a tough one.
Yeah, it's kind of like the marijuana ban. Like, how can you make a plant illegal? Like,
Well, that dude.
even in places where it grows naturally, it's illegal.
Well, the history of why it's illegal is because one dude tricked the government into thinking that they were banning something, and really he meant this whole umbrella of things. And next thing you know, marijuana was illegal, and they're like, hang on a second, you're making hemp illegal. That's where a lot of our stuff comes from. They're like, well, you already passed it. And then at that point we were kind of screwed.
Yeah, like CBD is legal here.
It's legal here
People
too.
use it a lot. Yeah, I know, and it depends like state by state, doesn't it?
Yeah, but mostly CBD's legal everywhere, and also marijuana is almost legal everywhere. It's getting a lot of steam, which is really, really good.
Yeah, it's good. If you use it. Like CBD has its benefits. We had a psychotherapist on to talk about it, say like what it's done for people who suffer from anxiety, depression, and other mental illnesses. Also talked about like how psilocybin can help veterans. So
I just feel like you can't tell people what to do. You can't force people to act a certain way. I get it, laws, if it's inhumane, then obviously it's justified for. But like
we can all agree a law against murder. Like fuck yeah.
Yeah. Depending on if it's a justice kill. Like I said, everything's got a scenario. A justice kill would be like a guy that, there was a dude that's a video in an airport of a guy that had killed a coach it was a coach walking through an airport with a couple of cops. It's on film. And a guy runs up and shoots the dude right in the head. The dude that shot the guy in the head was the father of the little kid that was molested by that coach, and the coach was going to get off. That's a justice kill. In the eyes of,
I've seen things like that before.
Yeah, in the eyes of morality, that's okay. But then it's like a whole flip scenario, and that's like that with anything. Somebody that loves peanut butter and jelly. Well, there's a motherfucker that hates peanut butter or is allergic to it.
What was one I seen? It was like Texas father beats son molester to death. There was like a teenager working for them or whatever. I don't know what he was doing, but he was caught molesting the kid, and then he bet the guy to death. And that was a dad protecting his kid. Like, I was pretty okay with. I can sleep at night knowing that father did his best.
But literally, with that scenario, it's like if a older guy messes with a little girl, you want to murder that guy. But then if it's the complete opposite, where it's like a little boy and an older woman, you're fucking like, the kid pulled a 30-year-old. It's like, hang on a second, why are we thinking like that? That's fucked.
Yeah, one thing that people judge a lot is like when that is in the newspaper, it's normally like a teacher had sex with student, and if it was flipped, it was teacher rapes young student. Like there's a difference between those two words. And they kind of need to, sort that out.
And what are how we got here? They're just noises we make with our mouth that apparently we can all understand.
Yeah.
Can you say one of my favorite words for me?
Sure.
Shite.
Shite. Yeah. I seen you messaging me earlier. I was like, where the fuck you learn this? Yeah.
Love it.
I love talking like crazy Irish. So I was on a podcast today with two lads, and we were talking mad shite. The shite was going to plenty, and there was I'll tell you now, it was we three lads, and the crack was unreal. It was unmatchable. We're talking to the Hardy Bucks up from Castletown, and it's class, man.
I don't know what she said, but it sounded amazing. Well, Gerard, dude, promote your podcast, man.
So the podcast I do, I'm one third of it. It's the Awfully Irish podcast. So basically what we do is just talk to people all over the world. Like we talk to comedians, talk to actors, activists as well. We're all about everything. Kind of like your man over here. He's done a lot of episodes. We do one every day. I think you do more than us.
I do post one every day.
Well, you a lot more. We post every day. We do a stream as well. Let's talk about all things Irish. We like to educate people on Irish culture, especially if they have Irish heritage. I kind of feel like I've done a little bit of that today. So if you want to check that out, and you want to give us a like, give us a subscribe, you can find us at Awfully Irish on YouTube, Awfully Irish on Twitter, and we're also on Instagram.
And surprisingly, they're not that awful.